Okay.
We gotta get combsing.
Here we are with the first episode of Combs Crew, the one and possibly only podcast solely dedicated to the works of Sir Jeffrey Combs.
Sir Jeffrey.
I assume he's been knighted, and if he hasn't, we got to get on that podcast.
That should be our goal. If he has not been, we'll Google it.
So we're apparently doing his films in reversed interest order because we're starting with Dr. Mordridge, the Jeffrey Combs film that probably people care about less than any other Jeffrey Combs film.
Oh, I'm sure that's not true.
It's a really strange movie. I think we'd all agree, right?
Yeah. This strange is a good word because this is Doctor Strange, just without the Marvel rights to Doctor Strange.
That's the first thing that's worth talking about is, people are pretty certain that this was originally a Doctor Strange movie made by Charles Band. At some point, he lost the rights to Doctor Strange, but he just made a movie anyways and called it Dr. Mordridge, and it's basically Doctor Strange.
Which, put in context, kind of does make more sense, make the movie make a little bit more sense, and also it still doesn't make sense.
Well, one thing that's funny when you learn that story is that I noticed in the opening credits it says based on an original idea by Charles Band.
Ooh.
And they explicitly say, it's an original idea by me, which almost seems like him saying, no, it's not Doctor Strange. I made this idea.
I've never even heard of Doctor Strange.
He's named Dr. Mordridge, so obviously different.
Totally different.
Well, it's almost drawing attention to it makes it worse. You didn't have to say, you're maybe overcompensating by being no, I came up with this totally by myself.
It's a little showy.
A little bit, yeah. And it's funny too, because it's an original idea, but then once you watch the movie, it's what idea was that? Because nothing happens in the film.
Yeah.
I like to think about the genre of this movie. What genre is Dr. Mordridge? Any
Fantasy?
thoughts?
Sci-fi?
Yeah.
I mean,
aliens?
This is a little something I wanted to talk about because it wants to be kind of a romance almost, or a love story, and which is frustrating because Jeffrey Combs, I love the idea of him as a full leading man with but it falls so flat. The love story, all of that you could take out and nothing would change.
There's not enough runtime to make a love story work.
Yeah,
it's just over so soon.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot in this movie that it feels like they cut it out, which is weird because they didn't have to cut stuff out. It's so short.
Yeah.
Some facts about the film. I thought of it as a superhero film just because I know that it was based on Doctor Strange. But really, it's not a superhero film at all because nothing happens. It feels like an episode of Doctor Who or something in special effects budget and even in runtime. So Jackie mentioned the length, and when you look at the movie, it's an hour and 11 minutes long, and that's minus 4 minutes for the opening credits, and then I think minus 4 minutes for the closing credits.
Oh, the opening credits, you mean the slow pan through
the
through
establishing
his
shot.
And it's so close. It's the camera is a foot away from his bookcases. It's such a weird creative choice.
It's I wonder if they had that apartment, ready to go, or if, they put all of their effort into the apartment and either way wanted to be look at this apartment.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like it because there's only 3 or 4 sets and the apartment is the main one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing about this film. It's one of those films where they had, as you just said, a very small number of sets, and they really spend a lot of time in each of these sets. It feels almost like a stage play. It's so small in scope, which is funny comparing it to a Marvel film, which are way too large in scope.
But I kind of love that about it. It's charming. It's, it feels handmade and not overblown. I don't know. I'm not crazy about Marvel movies. So I find this just I don't know, charming.
Well, I think it has what's slightly frustrating is it has a lot of potential. You could see how things could have been fun, and we'll talk about it, but I feel a lot of the most fun parts are the ones that are really random, the crazy guy dancing when he's and there are these moments that are, you get a glimpse of what it could be.
Yeah.
But
it could have been a great film if any of the characters did anything, but basically no one does anything. They forgot to have any characters do things from start to finish.
Hey, Combs is, you know.
Combs,
he does that.
Combs does his damnedest.
Handcuffs, like, you know.
Well, yeah, we have to start by saying that Combs is, of course, perfect in this film.
Yes.
And when I say Combs,
As always.
when I say Combs, I'm referring to Jeffrey Combs, the actor. Just so there's no confusion. Let's kind of run through this thing. So you mentioned the opening credits. So the opening credits, it starts off with this very slow pan over this set. It looks like half library, half like Wizard's Tower.
And also, like, it's all like old and there's ancient stuff and artifacts and whatever. But then there's neon.
There's neon, yeah.
Which it's like there's
Yeah.
really ooh, look, he's got wacky stuff, or oh, he's like modern too.
They're subverting your expectations with neon. They're like, didn't expect this.
There's like some Cold Wariness of it too. There's like a giant map on the wall. There's a wall full of television sets. Like,
it feels like a bunker.
Yeah.
At some point, and so then I think when you realize that it's just this.
Some New York apartment building.
Yeah, and it's technically a studio, right? Like, or are there parts we can't see?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Where does he sleep?
I don't know. So, you know, something's wrong right off the bat because they start to pan over the set. The set looks pretty good, actually. I'll say it's a good set, but that's because I think 90% of their budget is in this one set. Like they found some strange room, they added some props, and that was like most of their budget. But it says
they bought 2 TVs, they put them on the wall, they're ready to go.
It says like Charles Band. The text in the opening credits is very small. It's like 11-point font on the bottom of the screen. It says like Combs, directed by Charles Band. And then it just says Dr. Mordrid. And the text Dr. Mordrid is not centered. It's still on the bottom of the screen and like 11.
It looks like subtitles. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Closed captioning.
I want Jeffrey Combs' like name huge there. He's like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should come flying out at you.
And it's funny because it has a really impressive poster with cool text. And I think the official name of the film is Dr. Mordrid, I wrote this down, Dr. Mordrid, Master of the Unknown.
Yeah.
but in the opening credits, it's just Dr. Mordrid, 11.5.
Yeah.
So small. I love it.
Well, they went all out for the poster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the budget.
They blew that budget.
But the way they show the title is almost like a perfect little microcosm of the movie. It's like, oh, that's much smaller and more boring than I expected.
They haven't quite figured out the details, but they're just going to roll with it.
Yeah, they're going to wing it.
Yeah. And then we find out later that's where Dr. Mordrid lives, the set we're seeing. It's his bat cave, basically. But
His raven cave.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny that his raven is named Edgar Allan Poe. And like, did Combs name it? Because he loves Poe. So I wonder, like, did he have a hand in that? Or is it just like kind of, you know, heavy-handed to name a raven Poe?
One thing that occurred to me during this watching is his name is Edgar Allan.
Yeah.
Do we not know that that's not Edgar Allan Poe?
I thought at one point
He is a space wizard. That could be the ghost of Poe in a bird.
And yet again, like, just that would have been better. Like, why not just to go there?
He's like, this is the poet, Edgar Allan Poe.
See, the problem with that idea is that it's interesting. So that wouldn't make it.
Oh, no.
Inspired by an original idea by.
Oh.
So after these opening credits, and the credits are like 4 minutes, just panning over the entire set. They show you every inch of the set before the movie starts. Then it cuts to, we see Dr. Mordrid in space. He's floating in space, and he's talking to these floating eyeballs, which are, they're called the Monitor. And I love these eyeballs.
Monitor.
Yeah.
Bright blue eyes.
They're supposed to be like godly eyes, but they're kind of green screened out strangely, so you can see like the blood vessels and the eyelashes, and it's kind of gross, actually.
Yeah. Well, it reminded me of Rocky Horror, which does like the giant talking mouth so much more eloquently.
Yeah.
It actually looks good on screen.
And I love that you can tell it's space because there are stars. There's just stars. So we're in space, established. 4 minutes, apartment, 2 seconds, space, good. They're big eyes. That's all you need.
There's so many things that they don't explain. And like, I love that in a way that they don't beat us over the head with like just a million like exposition stuff. But at the same time, like some information would be nice.
Yeah.
Like what was he doing in there? And like all of his powers are like just so, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's a lot to unpack.
It's good to not explain everything, but at the same time, we never really know what powers Dr. Mordridge has, where exactly he's from. We don't know anything for sure, which sounds cool.
This movie has to feel like they are making it up as they go along.
Mhm.
Like a lot of times, or like he comes up with something and people are like, why? And he's like we'll get to it, but I feel like at a point there's even something where Mordred says, Monitor, you know my ability is limited. And it's like, what? Why is your ability limited? And then he goes and does the thing. So it just feels like they're always hedging.
Yeah.
Oh, for
Like,
sure. No.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you bring up that he mentions that my power is limited, because he does say that. And then in another scene, it's the scene where he's on the floating rock with that guy.
Cutter.
Yeah, like he heals him, and he's like, my power is powerful too, or he said something like that.
I have powers too.
Yeah,
friends.
like I'm powerful as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, wait, I just like seconds ago he just said his power is limited. So
And there's a lot of eye stuff. It didn't occur to me before. There's floating eyes. There's a guy with missing eyes. Like,
Yeah.
in my next viewing, I think I'm going to catalog.
all the eye themes.
Brian
Eye
Thompson.
imagery, symbolism.
Brian Thompson has kind of strange eyes a little bit.
Oh my
It's all
gosh.
eyes.
That's true.
Yeah.
So he's talking to the Monitor. The Monitor says something about how you will meet the Death's Head, and then Dr. Mordridge says, "Okay, yes, I'll do that."
The Death's Head will seek you out.
Do you know when?
No.
I took an oath. And when the time comes, I'll meet the Death's Head and beat it back.
Do they ever mention the Death's Head again?
That's the bad guy.
Well, yeah, I know he's the bad guy, but do they
That's the only time they refer to it like that.
I think they do it one other time
Really?
because they say when he talks to him again, it's almost like there's a prophecy because they say like two of the signs have happened and the death head, like they're kind of in the beginning, like this might happen. And then there's the confirmation of like, oh yes, the death head has escaped as I knew it always would or something. But it's hard to break rules when you have no idea what the rules are. And they just throw stuff at you. Okay, he's the death's head and he's been locked up and now he's going to break out and you'll figure out why. You're like, okay.
After the scene where he talks to the eyes, bam, Rio de Janeiro. Like I think
We're there.
And I think one thing I found funny is that when you see Rio de Janeiro, the text that says Rio de Janeiro is like 16 times the size of the text that said the name of the movie
Like,
in the opening
yeah,
credits.
that scene is some of my favorite props of the entire thing. Like I love the van, the armored car. Like the words on the side are like the ones you would buy at Michael's and like spray paint and glue to a wall. You know, and you're like, oh yeah, that's an armored car.
Why don't you walk us through this scene, or just like a quick run through of it?
So they're driving. There's an armored car driving down the road. It's like Bank of Rio.
Yeah.
They stop. One of the guards kills another guard.
Yeah.
Inexplicably.
Hey, vedete un sigaro?
Shoots him in the ass, which I find really funny. Like
To clarify, yes.
one guy's in back of the truck, one guy's in front. I swear to God, the guy in back shoots the guy in front in a way that looks like he shoots him right in the ass. Because you see him kind of come up from behind and shoot, and it looks like it's right in the ass. But sorry, that's not related.
So yeah, so he shoots the guy in the ass,
Yeah.
and then it gets out. He starts moving random metal boxes.
Yeah.
You know, the kind they keep valuable metals in,
Mhm.
and just sets them in the middle of the road. And then just like that, there's a Jeep coming up with Brian Thompson in it.
Brian Thompson.
Yep. Iconic. And
Dressed kind of like a pirate. I would say pirate-esque.
space pirate-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like some cool shades on.
Yeah.
He's from Buffy, right? You said? I've never seen.
That's my original kind
Yeah.
of thought of him.
Yeah.
Was a villain on Buffy. He plays Luke, who is it's an early Buffy, and he's kind of he's just this, of course, giant threat that is doing the bidding of the master, trying to get the master released from where he's trapped below, kind of
In the hellmouth
mid hell,
somewhere?
mid hell mouth. Yeah.
Purgatory.
Which is great because the master is not at all threatening. And I remember Luke being like Brian Thompson being very made me
Yeah.
uneasy.
And X-Files, I think, was my first intro.
Yeah.
He was the guy with the stiletto that he would like put in the alien's neck, and they would.
Right.
Nice.
And then what do
Really
you
good.
guys kind of think of him as? Like, what
He's
comes to
been
mind?
in a bunch of Star Trek, which actually I didn't realize until recently. He's been in 2 different episodes with Combs. He's been in a Deep Space Nine episode, in the very same episode where Combs was playing Wayun. And Wayun was actually like Brian Thompson's boss in that episode, which I find really funny. I really hope that they like talked about Mordrid or something. Maybe not. Maybe they both trying to forget.
Yeah, they're like, "Do you remember Dr. Mordridge?" And Brent Thompson's like, "No."
And then there was another episode where I actually haven't really seen it because I'm not a huge Enterprise fan, but Combs plays the Sandorian with is like a blue guy with antenna, and Brian Thompson plays a Romulan in the very same episode. It's
There you go.
crazy.
That's so funny.
Kind of sad, but Brian Thompson always seems to get like bad guy roles.
Oh,
I
God.
mean,
Well, I remember him as the bad guy in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. He plays Shao Kahn. He's like big and jacked, and has kind of like a vaguely skull-shaped face. He's like a good villain.
I
He's kinda-
think it's his voice too.
Yeah.
He has that voice is just made to kind of growl like
yeah.
threats at you.
his voice is so good.
well, he's got an unnaturally deep voice where it sounds like you've just taken a normal voice and slowed it down on a computer, and it doesn't quite.
Yeah.
It sounds fake, but it's just how he sounds. It's his voice.
Well, it's perfect for roles like this too,
Oh yeah.
where he delivers lines very slowly.
It's really
It's
good.
like that's the runtime.
Beyond the barrier of heaven and earth, let it go free into a closed dwelling. May it cause it to enter.
Well, and so to bring it back to that scene, this is another one of those like watching it on the second time I really noticed. So he has seemingly brain control of these 2 armored car drivers, enough to have one of them kill the other
By shooting him in the ass.
By shooting him in the ass. And then once he has what he needs, he says to the other one, "You're no longer needed." And he shoots it, the guard shoots himself in the head.
You are no longer needed.
And with that type of power, you think, well, what can't he do? Like, how easy should this be for him to just take over everything? But not that easy. He still seems, it takes a while for him to put everything together.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, why hasn't he used that ever again?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and like we'll find out later in the movie that he and Mordred are like brothers. They're right, but Mordred doesn't have the ability to make guards shoot themselves in the head.
I guess it's like a bad power, like he chose bad magic or something, and Combs chose like the good magic.
I think they're not actually blood brothers. I think they're just bros.
Oh,
it's hard to tell.
They were just kind of raised together.
Yeah. But this truck scene is funny because like every other scene in the movie, like it takes place in Rio de Janeiro, but it really takes place in like 10 feet of dirt road. Like the camera just fits this little 10 feet of dirt road with some trees next to it.
That looks suspiciously like California.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah.
It's
and there's no reason why it needs to be in Rio, right? Like there's no rhyme or reason for it. It could just as easily be in California, but maybe it's more impressive to.
It's not.
So he walks up to the boxes, and one of the notes I put down is metal boxes, and metals in quotes, because they just look like wooden boxes that have been spray painted like the kind of terrible silver spray paint, but that's fine. He takes these bottles out of the boxes and just pours them on the same stretch of road that he's standing on. Just a little patch of dirt road. He just pours it out there, and he's talking about a philosopher's stone, and he's trying to summon something, it seems like.
Release this blood of the earth. May it find its place with the philosopher's stone.
Yeah, because it almost seems like he's doing a spell at that point, right? Like he pours it out and
he pours it out and then they zap off to somewhere.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like some type of like maple syrup that is like a time travel maple syrup. I
don't know.
I don't know.
We later find out he's basically trying to open the portal to the fourth dimension. After this scene, we cut to B-roll of New York, and it's really one thing I wrote down is that it's the worst B-roll of New York I've ever seen. Because I found this helicopter footage of New York where like there's no recognizable buildings, there's no Empire State Building, there's no Chrysler Building. You just see skyscrapers and like if you're savvy, if you're New York savvy, you know, oh, that's the Queensboro Bridge. I think there's New York. It doesn't say New York at all. Just like
It was like inspired by an original idea of New York.
But later on, they do say it's New York. I think
Yeah,
they mention
they do.
New York.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The scene where they're talking in the
Oh,
hallway.
of course, yeah. Because after this, we go to the apartment hallway, and we spend most of the movie in this apartment for.
Yes, just in that hall. But which is hilarious that they start the Rio scene is the most recognizable kind of iconic view of Reno, and they say Rio de Janeiro, and then New York. It's like, man, people will have slight New York accents. You'll get caught up. It's fine.
You'll figure it out.
We zoom into some apartment hallway, and there's a weird scene. One of the themes of this movie is that I think whoever wrote the screenplay doesn't know like why people go to jail or how prison works.
Yeah.
Because we see these two people in the hallway, and they're arguing and they're yelling at each other. I think the guy's a dog and the dog's too loud.
I checked with my doctor. He said I could sue you and that rotten dog for keeping me up.
Oh, you're threatening me? You're some kind of a big deal lawyer?
No, but my nephew Morris is going to start law school in 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we see the love interest, Samantha. She opens her apartment door, and she continues the trend of not knowing how prison works, because then she's talking to them. She's like, well, if you tell the cops about how the dog is loud, I'm going to tell the cops about how your TV is too loud, and you'll go to prison.
Will you tell this man to keep his dog quiet or you'll throw him in jail?
Mr. Bernstein, you're going to have to figure out a way to keep baby quiet, otherwise she can call the police about it. And Mrs. Golden, if you call the police, I'm going to have to tell them how I can hear your television through my bedroom wall, and then everybody will be in jail except baby.
Yeah.
And then later,
everyone will be in prison except for the dog, she says.
Yeah.
And the dog's name is Baby. I think we should only refer to it as Baby from here on out.
That's very
I forgot
true.
about that.
But there's another occurrence where someone's like just going to jail for something mundane.
Yeah.
It's when Sam calls in the fire department and they notice that there's no fire and they're like, you're going to prison.
Yeah.
But we're writing you up. Called in a false alarm. She's
How
like,
dare you think something was on fire and try and save people?
Yeah.
so just everyone is going to prison except for Baby.
Yeah.
There's a handful of these side characters that are actually really quirky and strange, who you see way too much considering how short the movie is. But that's
Well, and you would expect them to come back and be important, and they are not at all. Like for how much time this scene takes up, they just kind of disappear. Yeah.
So Samantha's talking to the neighbors. Then Dr. Mordridge steps out of his door. And this is funny because this is when you realize that the crazy interior scene is not like a mansion. You'd expect them to have like a bat cave or a mansion. He just has like a studio apartment in the apartment building, which is funny.
It's not even like the penthouse. It's not even like the top floor.
No, it's just down the hall.
Yeah.
That's true. I
He
love
likes to
that.
stay humble, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he shows up, and immediately there's incredible tension, sexual tension between him and Samantha. The sparks are
Romantic, sexual.
Well, he does have that sensual golden robe.
Yeah.
With his
That's
initials.
It's true.
I want that robe. It's amazing. It's glorious.
I think my favorite part of that scene is as soon as he comes out, she's like, you know, something about New York being nice back in the day. And he's like, it was hundreds of years ago. And she's like, what?
I say 100 years ago, New York was a nice place to live.
It was.
It was?
I mean,
Like the first thing he says to her, like gives away his whole
I
shtick.
know. He's
I know
so
he's so bad at
he's
this.
so bad at
so
it.
bad.
I wrote this down because he immediately gives up his act immediately. And she's like, oh, I haven't seen you here before. He goes, I work a lot. And then she says, listen, I'm curious about, and then he touches his necklace and just like, boom, teleports out with there's a bunch of sparks.
Oh, listen, I'm kind of curious about...
And he could have just gone back into his apartment, but for some reason, like
He could have just walked out.
Yeah.
Or just said like, hey, I'm real tired. Talk to you some other time. Bye. But no, he had to use his like magic pendant to like
to escape
out of there.
to escape a conversation with like an attractive woman that he's attracted to. He like used magic to go back into his apartment. Yeah. I love it.
And doesn't he kind of like Men in Black her too, where he like clears her memory of the scene?
Maybe.
Oh, Maybe.
I think so
Yeah,
that so that
very
it
possible.
hides his like immediate faux pas of saying he's hundreds of years old.
I also love something that happens in this scene, which is kind of foreshadowing of how he is the worst landlord. Because I love she has just moved into the apartment. She's already like kind of smoothing things over among the tenants, and she apologizes to him for the amount of noise that's going on. And he's kind of like, yeah, thanks. Only to be like, he is the landlord. He is the one who should be taking care of stuff. But I love that she just immediately is in there, you know, negotiating with people and apologizing to him.
Sorry about all the commotion.
Oh, that's okay.
He's like the worst landlord.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe he's got good rates. Who knows?
He goes back into his apartment, and I think now we have just a protracted him in his apartment scene. I think it's one of those.
Yeah.
He's got a big map he likes to look at. He's looking at the map. He's looking at some books. He has 100 televisions. He's watching the televisions. I think there's one they mention, one of the newscasts mentions that platinum's been stolen. And he goes, platinum.
Police as yet have no clue as to the motive behind this shocking incident. At this time, the shipment of platinum has not been found.
Platinum.
And I guess this is one of the key indicators that, you know, the death's head is coming back, is platinum going away or something. It's
yeah, I wish he kind of like talked about it, like, oh, you know, like made that connection, but no, he just hears platinum and like gets concerned about it and doesn't really say anything.
Yeah. And well, one of the weird parts of that scene to me is, I think Catherine mentioned it earlier, that it's like, he's like, the things have been stolen at the correct times in the right places as prophesized. Yeah. And I'm like, if you knew when they were going to be stolen and where, go there. Don't let them be stolen.
Yeah.
And that's,
or like, how come we haven't heard this prophecy being said in the movie? Like, let's hear it. I want to hear this prophecy.
Just like, start the credits with the prophecy. Just be like, the prophecy foretold that blah, 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 blah. Here we are.
Yeah, he's too busy using his special powers to escape awkward conversations with attractive women.
Oh, listen, I'm kind of curious about...
He can't go to Rio and stop this theft that he knew was going to happen.
And not only does he not stop in the past, I think I noticed this time that like in the entire runtime of the film, he never leaves his apartment again until the end when he gets arrested. And he never goes anywhere. He's always in his apartment. There's one.
I think he goes one place. He does give a lecture on
serial killers
and serial killers. Yeah.
The cycles of the moon have been proven to affect the tides, magnetic polarity, and human behavior. The word lunatic comes from the Latin lunus, which means moon. We all know that when things get a little crazy, someone always remarks, there must be a full moon tonight.
But otherwise, until he's arrested and thrown in jail, he just never leaves his apartment. He's just always in his apartment, just looking at stuff.
Relatable.
But the lecture makes me wonder, like, is that what he has his doctor in? Is he a doctor of like the occult? Like, what's the doctor about? Did him doctor in the movie ever? Is that happen?
I don't know.
Or did they just call him Mordrid?
I don't think they call him doctor at all.
Yeah, I don't think they refer to it at all. You're right.
He doesn't call himself doctor. He's like, Dr. Anton.
I don't know what he is. We don't know if he's actually an alien, if he's an interdimensional being. I think he calls himself a sorcerer once, but then they use alchemist a lot. Like
alchemist,
he calls himself an alchemist, or maybe the bad guy's an alchemist. I'm not
they
quite
even
sure.
talk about like angels or something a little bit.
There's biblical stuff too later
So
on.
like what is
and he seems immortal, like not that he can't die necessarily, because when, you know, we'll get to it, but when he leaves his body and it needs to be protected, he's worried about not being able to come back or something happening to his physical form. But he's been alive for seemingly hundreds and hundreds of years. Not explained.
No, I wish the rules were kind of like laid out a bit.
Yeah.
But on one hand, it's so nice seeing Combs in like the true hero role. Because like in Star Trek, almost all of his roles are actually, I don't think there's a single role he's played in Star Trek where he's like a good guy. Each of his roles have been a little antagonistic in some way. And of course, like all of his movies he's not usually the hero, or there's something about him that's like antagonistic.
He's like a conflicted hero. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, he's just straight hero.
Yeah, total good guy. It's nice to see.
Yeah, and again, I like seeing him as a romantic lead. Like, I just wish the romance were a little heftier.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, let's talk about that a little bit since we're on it. So Samantha is the main love interest and he's the main guy. They never say anything romantic to one another. They never hold hands. They never kiss. There's no kiss at the end. And not only that, like every time they have a conversation, the filming style, like they push the camera really close in. So you just see only his face, only Samantha's face. So it doesn't even feel like they're in the same room. They have this immense disconnect and there's just no...
There's a distance. Yeah.
There's just no connection whatsoever. And it's kind of funny.
And like the closest they ever got was when she was like hanging out in his apartment for like all of 2 minutes talking about the occult a little bit. And he made her coffee from his like amazing freaking coffee machine.
Yeah. So let's jump around the story a little bit. So most of the film, again, is him in his apartment trying to figure out what this villain's doing. That's most of the film. And sometimes, and he kind of strikes up with friendship with Samantha, who comes over and they talk about the occult stuff a little bit. He's got scrolls, he's got orbs they're kind of looking at. She doesn't really know he's magic. She knows a little bit, I guess. It's a little uncertain how much she knows. Like,
well, and so what is her job? She works with the police department. It almost feels like she helps them translate things.
As one of the cops describes her later in the movie, he says, "Hunt, you're queen of the freak squad." So seemingly she is queen of the freak squad.
Her role is extremely specific.
It's part of my job. I'm a special consultant to the NYPD involving cults and Satanism, mostly on homicide cases.
So you are a policewoman.
Well, not exactly.
And also the cop, the main cop that she like reports
Tony
to or talks to is like so
yeah.
I love like how over the top shitty they made him. Like instantly, like he's just always chewing gum, which is real up there as far as like putting him on like my shit list.
Yeah. We get a little bit, we get a few scenes that kind of flesh out her job. She's apparently a special consultant to the NYPD involving cults and Satanism. That's her
so specific
title.
Yeah.
It's so specific.
But it's a real job. And she's paired with this guy, Tony, who's like this real New York cop. And all he does is like disparage her work, misinterpret her work, and hit on her. Ask her out to date.
And sexually harass her.
Why are you making this tough, huh? Why don't you let me show you the city's appreciation?
The mayor sends me a Christmas card every year.
I could do better than that.
Really? So why don't you talk to your chief about giving his special consultants a raise?
I was thinking more about dinner.
He calls her hun while like working, and that's just not.
Yeah, and I really like pushes. I mean, obviously makes her uncomfortable. Obviously has been asking her out over and over again, despite her clear indication she's not. Which is just so funny. Like that's kind of the first scene you see her being very like intelligent and having this like knowledge, but then just having to deal with this creepy guy, which that also doesn't seem to really go anywhere. You kind of almost expect there to be like this comeuppance of that character. And
and it's like you mentioned earlier, the one about the fire.
Yeah.
Where they're like, we're going to throw you in jail for reporting a false fire. Like those are cops that she knows too.
Yeah. Haven't I seen you at the station? It's Miss Hunt, right?
That's right. Overworked and underpaid by the 10th precinct, just like you guys.
I just want to make sure I got the name right. Calling in a false alarms against the law, lady. You'll be hearing from us.
Like every cop seems to hate her, even though they're coworkers.
And she's helped break important cases. Like
the poor lady.
Well, let's talk about what leads to the fire. So Jeffrey Combs watching TV. He sees the word platinum on TV. He goes, platinum. So then he's like, oh shit, I got to ask the eyeballs about the platinum. So there's a long scene where he walks up to an orb and he touches.
Is this the one where he says to monitor contact me? Like he just says it as almost like he's like paging the monitor.
Monitor, contact me.
It's so funny to me that is what he has to do. He's like, oh, I need to talk to him, but he just says out loud, monitor, contact me, and then he's in space.
He touches an orb. Then we're back in space again. He's talking to the eyeballs again. We don't really learn anything new. Oh no, the eyeball says, "Oh, you should go check this out." That's right.
the floating rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it
then,
kind of like confirms,
floating rock. Yeah.
Yeah, that things have come together.
The first and second signs have come to pass. Great quantities of basic alchemic elements have been stolen at the times and places predicted.
What does this tell you, Mordrid?
That the Death's Head has escaped.
This is so.
But how?
You must cross over.
The eyeball seems to know more than it's telling Mordrid, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
I understand why the eyeballs can't do this themselves.
Yeah.
They seem pretty, I don't know, like the bigwig. Like,
yeah.
Well, so she smells the smoke, and it's strong enough that she is convinced that a fire has broken out. And it is just the smoke that is opened up of him passing through.
Yeah.
Like, so every time he does this, does it give off the scent of burning building? Like, it's
really strangely.
Yeah, and like his books go on fire and stuff. It's like, dude, you have all this stuff in there. Like, and your poor Raven. Is it gonna, like, the poor Raven gonna be okay?
Yeah, there's a shot when he goes to the portal where you actually see like all the books in his apartment catching fire. You actually see them all catching fire. And that's what leads to the fire scene later on. But we'll get to that in a minute, because the eyeball tells him to check out the prison or whatever. So then he teleports to like the only fantasy location of the film, which there's this cool little miniature of this like floating space prison.
Ass.
I love it.
Yeah. More of that would have been.
It's like a stone castle. It's floating in space, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a neat little miniature.
And I love the dude on it.
Cutter.
Cutter?
So he steps. He told us about Cutter.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, it's like just a fantasy guy in like chainmail for some reason
with a grenade launcher.
No, I thought it was like, it almost looks like a shotgun, but it shoots lasers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a laser gun, I think.
Yeah, which is pretty kick-ass.
So
and his eyeballs are missing. His eyeballs are burned out.
So Jeffrey Combs arrives in this prison, and he meets Cutter's like, this big Scottish bald guy. No, not bald. This bearded Scottish-looking guy. His eyes are gone, and he's like, the bad guy escaped, and he melted my eyes.
The last thing I saw was a firestorm he conjured up. It would have been kinder to kill me. Instead, he melted my eyes from their sockets and left me here as an example of what a cosmic son of a bitch he is.
And then Jeffrey Combs heals him. He heals his eyes with his touch.
There's nothing left here for me to give you. Thank you isn't good enough.
Forget it. Besides, you can't stand guard if you can't see.
Well,
he can do that.
Yeah.
This is the part where Combs was not sure he was going to be able to get there.
You must cross over.
You know my ability is limited, Monitor.
And then he gets there and he heals them seemingly with no problem.
I'm powerful too.
It's great that it just feels like a cap where they're just like, well, he can do this, but like, he really has to try, and he's not sure he's going to be able to. Oh, he did it, but like he can't do that like again, because that would be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a 10-minute scene, but really all that happens is the guy says that the bad guy escaped. That was a prison where the bad guy's being held. He escaped, and then Jeffrey Combs healed him, and Jeffrey Combs leaves. He doesn't really learn anything. He's just like, oh yeah, sure enough, just as I knew, the bad guy is back. He just keeps.
Well,
that's all he learned.
And there is like a grate there. I honestly in my head picture it as like a subway grate that's full of demons, right? Behind it.
Yeah, it's like that's like the door to the fourth dimension, right?
Yeah.
So just like a subway grate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's this little round manhole thing.
Yeah.
Later on, I guess you find out that this is what the bad guy's trying to open, but you don't really understand that at first. Yeah.
There's like some claymation monsters behind it, but they're hidden for now.
Talking about it now, I think one of the problems of the movie is that Jeffrey Combs, like, all he does is learn the same information again and again. There's like 15 scenes where he learns, the bad guy's coming back soon. And this is yet another one of those scenes. Like, he already knows the bad guy's escaped. He knows the bad guy he's trying to open the fourth dimension. He goes to this prison and he learns, the bad guy escaped the prison. He already knew this. And like, he's learning this.
Well, and he's kind of just catching up on things that have already happened. Like, he's not doing anything to actually try and stop it.
Exactly.
And there's never an opportunity for him to like kind of be proactive. He's very much just on the trail of figuring out what has already occurred, which is not the most exciting necessarily in terms of like plot.
What does this tell you, Mordrid?
that the Death's Head has escaped.
This is so.
But how?
Yeah, and like screenwriter-wise, they talk about like a ticking clock, where it's like the ticking clock is that he is going to get the stuff to do his alchemist thing so he can open the fourth dimension and let his like demon babies loose into our dimension. But there never feels to be any urgency because he's not getting new information. He's not learning stuff that's pushing him on the journey. People are just telling him like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now it's going to happen. And he's like, I know.
I thought the same thing, where the film would feel a lot better if they said like, oh, by the third full moon, it'll happen. So that way there's some sort of sense of timing.
Yeah.
But there is none of that. But that's fine.
I mean, he even looks at like some scrolls in his apartment and like checks something as if like he's checking the prophecy. And it would be nice if like it explains something. He even opens a watch for a second while like looking at those scrolls, and he's like, oh, not much time left, or something about like time. And it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, go.
Like, let's see.
Well, and
leave
you
your
need
apartment.
to give, I think, leave your apartment. And then like, I think as a movie, like give the audience visual clues so that we can see something and be like, oh, there's less time, or the moon's getting fuller, or, you know, something like that to help push our urgency along too.
Yeah, because it even would have made sense that he's trying to stop this prophecy, but the timing is slightly off, so he's getting there right after it's happened. Like there could have been these things where he's actively working, but as is, he's very just kind of like, oh, and I love that it's like literally, oh, the news said platinum, therefore I'm gonna write it down in my notebook. Like, what?
Like anytime he hears the word platinum, he's like, platinum.
Platinum.
Actually, the watch reminded me. I took a screenshot of his little pocket watch, and I'm sending it to you guys in Hangouts right now. In his little pocket watch, it's him and like another lady, and I mean, it's obviously from like a long time ago, but like they never talk on this, so it's. Yeah. I guess it's just saying like, he had like this lady friend long ago, and
is that like another tenant he was trying to get with? Like in Victorian times?
Yeah.
And they're both dressed like Edgar Allan Poe, which kind of fits in.
They are.
Speaking of, that's something we should mention is just the costuming, where it's Jeffrey Combs just constantly swaddled in soft cloth the entire film.
It should be.
Like when he's at home, he's in these golden robes. It looks so comfortable.
Well, it looks
so comfortable.
And then when he's
then he's got his business robes, the blue ones.
When he's when he's in superhero mode, he has like a Smurf blue shirt, Smurf blue pants, Smurf blue cape, but blue head to toe.
Yeah. Perfect for slow motion walking through fog. Oh, that's the other thing I meant to talk about in the Rio scene. The use of slow motion. When the Jeep comes up, it's all in slow motion, and you just get the sense that they needed to pad the runtime. They're like, where can we look where we can just slow it down? And like, when can Jeffrey be walking through fog with a cape, just real slow and it's like, we know what you're doing.
And of course, it's not the real slow motion. It's the jittery slow motion that happens when you just slow down. But that's fine. So I think let's jump forward a little bit. So
I know at this rate, like we'll talk about it longer than the movie.
It'll be longer.
We're almost there already. But so yeah, as we mentioned, when he goes to the portal, it lights all of his books on fire for some reason. Samantha touches his doorknob and sees the doorknob is hot, so she calls the fire department. The fire department's they come in, they're about to kick down his door. Then Jeffrey Combs opens up the door right before they axe the door down. And Jeffrey Combs like,
What's all this? Well, this young lady called in an alarm. There's no fire.
What? I thought you were burning up in there.
No, I'm fine, as you can see. Everything's fine.
There's a few cops with the firemen, and they're like, Samantha, right? You work at the station, right? Well, you're going to go to prison because it's a crime to put in a false alarm, which is crazy because she smelled smoke and she felt heat.
Yeah.
And they're going to
She's being very responsible.
Yeah, why is that such a threat in this movie? I don't get it.
I really think fire stations have a better safe than sorry mentality.
Yeah.
That's
Now we actually see the bad guy do something. He's trying to open the fourth dimension. We're introduced these two cultists, these two Satanist cultists who are these kind of, I call them like the R-rated characters, because one thing about this film is this film would be PG, not even PG-13. This would be a PG film, except for these two characters who say fuck a little bit and they swear a little bit.
Babe, did you really speak to him, or are you just Why are you bullshitting?
The dude spoke to me.
Oh, it's gonna be fucking great! Cabal could have picked anybody in the world to help him, and he picked us.
It's a real honor, babe. Like meeting Jagger backstage.
I don't know if they might have names, but it's one guy and one girl. They look like punk rockers. They mentioned that they were cast out of heaven. So there's a little biblical thing to this too. They're like, which is so strange.
Oh, you mean like Combs and Brian Thompson?
No, the two punk rock
They were
Satanists.
cast out of heaven?
Yeah.
A house of worship in ruins. Very appropriate, Adrian.
Hey, we were cast out of heaven, right?
That we were.
Yeah.
I feel like it was like either they were almost like this, like metaphor for like humanity. It's like we were cast out of God's graces, so screw him. We're willing to work with the evil guy.
I really couldn't tell. I was like, are they fallen angels or are they just dramatic?
I think they were just dramatic.
Punks? And I think they're just dramatic.
Yeah.
That's much better, actually.
No, that's what I thought too.
I feel like I was similar to that in my teen years, so I like identified a little bit with them.
And I might be mixing this up, but I feel like they even mention like that he doesn't need to do the mind control on them, or maybe it's the guy says it later, like because they're fully on
He's
board.
like, I'm willing, man.
Yeah.
Like just tell me what to do.
I love that.
I'll do it, man.
So they're gonna help Brian Thompson's Cabal character do his task. So Cabal just teleports into their room because we can't have a scene of someone going somewhere. Everything happens via teleportation.
Nobody uses doors.
No.
And he just they're just like, we pledge allegiance to you. And then later on, the next time we see them, which is not very far, it's almost the next scene, I think. The woman Satanist is topless, and it seems like, like Cabal is going to have sex with her and fulfill some prophecy.
Of all the women you could have had. And you chose me.
Yes, I chose you.
But instead, he just kind of like touches her head and she screams.
Well, and like, why was Cabal topless in that scene? I feel like that was like kind of misleading. That's what like alluded to the sex part. Like he's half naked, just for kicks.
And he does grope her a lot for someone who is just gonna he brands her with his ring.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Well, and then later they refer to her as a runaway who has been drained of blood.
Hey, Hunt, you're acquainted with Freak Squad. What do you make of these?
Dead woman.
Dead runaway, completely drained of blood. Her folks filed an MJ report on her 6 months ago.
But they never explain like why. Where did her blood go? Did he drink it or did he use it?
There's numerous references to him drinking blood. Like Cabal at some point to Mordrid is like, I'm going to drink your blood and eat your flesh.
That's cool.
Like, that's just what he's into, I guess.
I mean, maybe it's an alchemist thing, or maybe he's just like really into it.
So
that's his kink.
Before this is over, I'll drink your blood and feed on your flesh, and it will taste sweet.
Everybody's got their thing.
At the end of the film, Cabal. At the end of the film, Cabal does open up. He tries to open the portal, but this thing where he like has the naked lady and he brands her. This is the last thing we see. This is like the last task we see him do to accomplish that goal. After this, Cabal just kind of like doesn't do anything until he just appears at the end of the film, ready to open the portal.
He helps the guy create the guy punk.
Oh yeah, but that's not even doing it. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
So sorry.
Well, so it's like platinum, and then it's
blood
destroying a naked lady, like
and diamonds.
And
he needs
diamonds.
lots of diamonds. They procure, or I guess Cabal actually procures them, but like $1 billion worth of diamonds.
Yeah.
Just like cases of diamonds. He's just running his hands through them.
It's like the same scene. He just has like a big chest full of diamonds, and he's just like, "Look what I can make."
Diamonds. The wonders I can create from this primitive earth.
One of my favorite, just as a side note, one of my favorite parts of that scene is when he first goes in to meet the punks, and it's like this like decrepit church with all these candles, and he's like, nice decorations. I like the blasphemy. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think immediately after the scene, we get back to Jeffrey Combs in his apartment. And this is the famous crystals of Endor scene that you were referencing before.
Oh yeah.
So we see Jeffrey Combs, and
Who can forget?
yeah, he's got this box full of these glass knives, and he's kind of slowly pushing them into his stomach with both hands. And as they enter his stomach, they kind of turn into light. We don't know what the hell he's doing.
And then immediately after, Brian Thompson pops into his apartment. So like I thought the first time we watched this movie, I thought the glass daggers were like summoning him, because like as soon as he pops, like
100%.
Like Brian Thompson's there. So
he pushes the daggers in. Brian Thompson teleports in, and then Brian Thompson's like, "Oh, the crystals of Endor. It'll take more than that to stop me."
The crystals of Endor. It will take more than that.
Yeah, it was only like after watching it for a second time, I realized like him putting it into his chest, like let him like shoot it out later.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. It's not very clear.
Yeah. When Brian Thompson teleports into his apartment, like Dr. Mordridge holds out a hand, and like one of the daggers kind of like magically shoots from his hand, and it looks like a magic missile kind of. And that's the only time you see Dr. Mordridge attack anything in the film. That's the only.
No.
Yeah. No, that's it.
When he like astral projects to the
that's not
art
attacking.
museum,
We'll get to that later.
He does like a little zappy thing.
Does he do his zappy?
Oh, he does do his zappy thing. Well, that kind of ties in what I was thinking. Upon a second watch of this film, it kind of reiterated how good Combs is in these things, where removed of special effects, like he really sells stabbing himself in the stomach with a glass knife. You know, it's like a tight close up on his face as he's shoving it in, and you're like, I believe it. I believe it.
This is another scene where he learns the same fact again, where he's like, Brian Thompson appears, he's like, I'm going to open the fourth dimension. And Combs is like, no, I'm going to stop you. So, and then he teleports, he basically teleports away, and that's essentially it. So when Cabal teleports into Jeffrey Combs' apartment, Cabal's like, why don't you use some of your legendary powers against me now?
You've had over 100 Earth years to prepare for this. Why don't you use some of your legendary powers against me now?
And when you're watching the film, it's like, yes, use your legendary powers.
Yeah, this would be a great scene for just a full out fight. Like, let's see what they both can do. Let's see how they, So yeah, because I 100% thought that the crystals of Endor were a summoning or to trap him, something, but it's not really explained why if he's able to just show up in his apartment, why not? Why?
Yeah.
So many whys.
Yeah. I think Cabal has like astral projected into his apartment, so he's not really there. They say they say a line where Jeffrey Combs is like, I can also astral project or something. So
I can transport my spirit as well.
But
the rules are so crazy though, because like Jeffrey Combs astral projects to the museum later on and is able to do like spells and stuff.
Yeah, so I don't know, like about this to spell him.
Yeah.
So
that's a good question.
Or like, why isn't Cabal like possess like, I don't know, stuff in his apartment or like fuck shit up?
Yeah.
Even just to annoy Combs, like if he can't, I don't know.
Well, like do something to Edgar Allan, like mess with his crow, mess with his raven. That would really upset him.
It's true.
That would really upset us all.
I feel like we're better villains than actual Cabal. I don't know alchemy, but
it's true. Yeah. So the next big plot arc, which pretty much takes the rest of the movie, is Samantha. I guess you don't really see it that much, but you find out that her police department is like investigating the death of the cultist lady that we saw Cabal kill. And as you said, like Cabal has branded her with his ring. And so Samantha just tells Tony, her partner, like, oh, my neighbor knows a lot about occult stuff. His name is Dr. Mordridge. You should ask him because he might be able to identify this ring, whatever this means.
I was talking about the mark on her face. The killer made it with his ring. What do you think? I thought maybe it was some kind of a letter from a foreign alphabet.
No, it was especially designed. Look, I know someone who's a real authority on this sort of stuff. I mean, he's kind of a recluse, but I'm sure he'd be glad to help us.
And again, to hammer on the theme of prison, like, instead of asking him questions, just like Tony just arrests Dr. Mordridge. He's like,
just goes and immediately arrests him.
Anton Mordrid, open up. This is the police.
You don't know what you're doing, Detective. You are making a big mistake.
What the hell's going on here?
questioning your neighbor on suspicion of homicide.
What?
I'm afraid they won't listen to me, Miss Hunt.
I'll listen to you all you want. In the interrogation room.
And for the rest of the film, he's convinced that Dr. Mordridge killed this woman for literally no reason.
Yeah, and he's just being.
He saw a symbol that was on the dead body, and that's it. Like to New York City cops, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like Samantha told him that Dr. Mordridge knows a lot about the occult. So then for the rest of the film, he's convinced that Dr. Mordridge killed this woman. Convinced, and he never lets up ever.
He did not kill that girl, Tony.
Then he's an accomplice or it's a cult thing. He's connected to it somehow.
Oh, you telling me you're holding him on a murder charge?
Hey, don't get pissed off. I'm going to put in a good word with you, with the captain. This was a good lead.
Well, and that is also like they have that conversation earlier because she went to Mordred's speech on where he's talking about the Zodiac killer and the occult and serial killers. But so he is established as somebody who gives speech. I mean, he had a full room for that speech. He was telling jokes. Everyone's laughing. Like it's so great because they treat him as if he's this really like, he doesn't leave the apartment. He's this weirdo that nobody knows who he is. Yeah. He doesn't have a footprint because he's been there for so long. But then he's also seemingly pretty well established in kind of the scholarly community. Yeah. And you would think that if she's going to this, that the cops would have some idea. But yeah, it's really, this is the guy. He killed a runaway, branded her, and drained her of blood. Obviously, it's Mordrid.
Or obviously.
So most of the rest of the movie is Dr. Mordridge's in prison. He's being held in this little room. Samantha, of course, is there, and she's like trying to help him a little bit. There's a scene where like she talks to him. He gives the backstory. You find out that he and Cabal were students at the same intergalactic school, and then Cabal turned evil, he turned good.
But while one focused on assuming his place as a great sorcerer and command the worlds of light with understanding and beneficence, Cabal, the other student, the ambitious one, found a home with the children of Belial. His goal was to control the powers of darkness and one day enslave mankind.
And that's pretty much all you get. It's like they're both sorcerers. Cabal turned bad. Jeffrey Combs is good. And Jeffrey Combs explains a little more clearly that what Cabal's goal is. He says he will literally rip a hole into the fourth dimension and release the demons. And he says, I like this line. He says, it would be beyond the apocalypse.
He will literally rip a hole into the fourth dimension and release the demons who are trapped there onto your world. And let them feed. Will be beyond the apocalypse.
And I love that one.
Because he says, so Cabal has been in prison for 150 years.
150 Earth years.
Oh, Earth years. So we don't know. He says that Cabal escaped to come to Earth to reduce it to an ash heap. And he's going to release the demons so they can feed. Why? Like, why? And if he knows this, why hasn't this come up? Like, why hasn't...
Yeah.
That whole part with the police scene, because the way he transfers this information to her is he like grabs her head.
Oh yeah.
And just like I don't know, telepathically shows her this story that just grinds the movie to a halt. It's so boring.
The boys competed in everything. Sometimes one would win, sometimes the other.
There's a scene with the boys where they're just like sitting there doing nothing. Like, I wish they had just like made Combs, like dressed Combs up like a boy.
Yeah.
And dressed Brian Thompson as a boy and have them act it out, because the kids acting had no charisma.
And also they're like, the kids are supposed to be like learning magic, and all they do is like make a book float, I think. Like, show some more magic happening. Well, I think like the book burns because like Cabal is using bad magic and burning the book or something. Like, let's see some sparks and stuff. Like, they're just sitting.
I love it. Yeah, because most of the film, when you expect Dr. Mordridge to be doing things, he's kind of in his apartment, just kind of staring into space. He's just like literally just like holding a book, staring off, or like he's staring. And then during this flashback, it's just two boys sitting on the floor, just they're just staring blankly forward. And it's like, why must everything?
Well, you also forgot that Mordrid takes off. I love when he takes off his handcuffs as if to be like, nothing can hold me. Yeah. But then also like, it's with all of the, I know you're going to get to it, but with like all of the magical abilities he has, they escape by literally like causing a disturbance and just running. Like, it's so great.
Also, he's supposed to be so powerful, and he lets himself get captured and
I don't know,
like get stuck in that shitty position. Like, how did he let that happen?
And the thing that raises the stakes in this film is that the cops took away his little necklace, and then he mentions that like without my necklace, I can die, like I'm mortal or something. So
that's right.
So he needs to get Samantha to help him get his necklace back. The necklace is just in some lab in the police department.
A lot seems to ride on the necklace. It's kind of like sad that like seemingly all of his powers are in this necklace.
Yeah. But now Jeffrey Combs is Dr. Mordridge starting to panic. He's like, there's not much time left. Brian Thompson's going to open the dimension and I'm stuck here in prison. And, he hasn't done anything to prevent this, but still he's getting upset. He's getting nervous. Then there's a scene where we see Cabal with the cultists again. Actually, just the guy is left because he already killed the lady already.
Yeah.
And he pours some liquid on him or something and makes him, he says like,
for the next 12 hours, no physical harm can come to you.
Well, fucking A.
12 hours.
Yeah.
Leading up to the single best scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Well,
in my mind.
Well, he tells the guy, he says like, oh, Dr. Mordridge's been arrested. So then like it's presumed that this cultist, this like punk rock cultist is going to go to the prison to, kill Jeffrey Combs or something. But do you want to say how he goes about this task?
Oh, in the greatest way. He's randomly dancing, like screaming, like singing songs until a cop pulls up.
Hey, officer.
Yeah. He's like, how's it going, dude? And like just provokes this cop to the point that the cop shoots him.
Yeah.
It does nothing because he's invincible for 12 hours. But yeah, he's like clutching a Molotov cocktail. There's a few F-bombs dropped. It's like it's helping the R rating.
Yeah. He
like
said
the energy and of that scene. Is just it really does, like when we had it on in the background, that was the part like I turned around just to be like, wait, like it immediately got my attention.
Well,
I watched that whole scene.
It's the setting is what makes it funny because he's on some train platform in broad daylight, all by himself, and he's kind of like dancing and doing this drunken dance.
He's having a good time.
In broad daylight on this little concrete.
Yeah.
So he throws a Molotov cocktail at the cop car. Actually explodes a cop car. They actually blow up a car. It's pretty cool. It's like
the body was fun on that.
And then after blowing up the cop car, he says,
"All right, you've had your fun now, motherfucker. Go ahead, arrest me."
Go ahead, arrest me. Then he just gets arrested and he goes to prison where Jeffrey Combs is. And then there's a really funny scene too, where there's a scene where you see Dr. Mordrid like in the hallway. He's in handcuffs and he's being like escorted by a police officer. And then, this punk guy comes in and they're face to face briefly, and Tony's talking about Dr. Mordrid. And Tony said like, I'm charging this guy for withholding evidence, which I guess is his way of saying like, I'm throwing him in prison for not admitting that he killed, I don't know. He's still stuck in it.
Oh, yeah.
So then the punk rock guy comes in, and Tony has a great line.
What is this, Night of the Living Wackos?
He goes, what is this, Night of the Living Wackos?
Hey.
So stupid. And in response, the punk guy goes, Cabal rules, baby.
Cabal rules, baby. Shut up.
Which I love. Awesome. So here's the thing. The Satanist punk rock guy, like he's in prison to kill Dr. Mordrid, I assume, or stop Dr. Mordrid. In this scene, they're just like literally they're face to face in the hallway.
Yeah.
And then the cop just like they just get dragged in different directions by their respective cops, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's like
nothing got accomplished. Yeah.
There's no.
I mean, the punk guy has been made invincible. Like
Invincible.
there is nothing
For 12 hours.
anybody could do in this moment. He could wrestle a gun away.
Yeah.
He literally, and he's just. It's like he forgot what he was doing, and he's just all hyped up on like.
Well, the whole thing, Cabal needed to be like, just go to the police station.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to this random train
Absolutely.
depot to get arrested, to get taken to the police. Just like walk into the police station, screaming bloody murder, get shot, take a gun, and shoot Mordrid. He's immortal.
You could have a cool. You could have a Terminator style scene where he just walks in, everyone's shooting at him, just like glance. The bullets aren't affecting him. He's just kind of walking right through it. But instead, he just gets arrested. The cops are about. So a cop is about to throw him in a cell. Then right before he gets thrown in the cell, he just kind of turns around and punches the cop. And that's how like the Satanist guy escapes being arrested. At the same time, Samantha has gotten Dr. Mordridge's necklace back by using it on this poor lab technician who like he's drinking a smoothie and then she pushes the button on his necklace and like it makes him practically choke to death in the smoothie. And it's actually it's supposed to be funny, but it's very gruesome.
No, it's like, oh no. Or what?
It's like stressful.
Well, that poor guy too. He's like, "You want to eat lunch with me? This is all I ever drink."
That's it? That's all you're gonna have?
That's all I ever have. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all in one.
Yeah.
Like he's like, "This is all I ever drink and eat." But he's also like, "It'll make you lose 20 pounds in a month."
Yeah.
Or something like that's all you drink. You're just gonna die. You're just gonna waste away and die.
Well, it is another one of those details where like the script gives so much focus or little quirks to these side characters. Like, why does he have to drink a smoothie? And why does he need to talk about needing to lose weight? Like, why is that an important part of this? But the script has time to like fit that in.
He's just like,
and then he almost chokes on it, and it's just feels so
sad.
Yeah, this is when you find out that the necklace can pause time for 30 seconds or something. Apparently, because like she pushes the button when he's drinking, and then it pauses time, which still the fluid is coming out of the cup and running down his face. Like he's
it doesn't even really pause time. It like pauses him.
Yeah,
but time's still going. Yeah.
So
we're getting there.
Yeah. So basically, like she takes the necklace back to Dr. Mordrid. They just push the button a few times, which pauses time each time they push the button, and they just basically run down the sidewalk. They just run away, like no magic, just running from the cops who are shooting at them.
Conjures like a fake gun to like seem like he's kidnapping her because he wanted it to seem like she wasn't like in on it. He's like, I did it to like make sure you're not like wrapped up in all this. But it was just like a fake mystery gun. I don't know.
Yeah. That's another one of my favorite where the alarm's going off and when somebody says, "What's that noise?" And I think another one of the cop responds,
"What's the noise?" "It's the fuck you buzzer. Shut up."
"It's the fuck you buzzer. Shut up."
That's the great thing about this movie is like it's really most of the movie's really dull, but then it's so short and there's just like 10 points that are just so funny and strange and just like and that's a great. I forgot about that line.
No, that's so good.
So Dr. Mordrid seems to know that Cabal needs to go to the Cosmopolitan Museum to finish it. And because it's New York,
the famous New York Cosmopolitan Museum.
But this is a great scene of like Dr. Mordrid being ineffectual because like they run from the police station. There's a park nearby, so they run to the park. And
they specifically say Central Park, and they have
Central Park.
One like shot of actual Central Park, but then it cuts to something that was probably not.
But I love this though because like. I guess Cabal is doing something at the Cosmopolitan Museum, which is in the same city. And Dr. Mordridge is just like powerless. He just looks at Samantha. He's like, with the traffic this time of day, like it'd take an hour to get down there.
Now, Cabal has to get to the Philosopher's Stone. Last piece he needs. Okay. But it's in the Cosmopolitan Museum on the other side of town. That's going to take an hour in this traffic.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh man.
It's like the only reason he astro projects is because of like
the traffic,
like afternoon traffic in Manhattan.
I love it.
It's so good. Well, that's one of those, it feels like someone's like, well, why wouldn't he just project? And they're like already filming and they're just like, Traffic.
That's gonna take an hour in this traffic.
To have him say a line about the traffic, because like,
and I feel like they really missed like the astral projection. I get, because it sets up that final showdown. But there would have been something great of him like just getting in a taxi, using some magic to make a taxi driver like drive 100 miles an hour, like zipping through the streets. I feel like it's just like
fire or something. I don't know, something magical.
Yeah.
It's
magical.
Yeah.
But instead of magic, he talks about the traffic, then he just turns to Samantha and he's like, I'm going to astral project there. So he just lays down like spread eagle on the grass. He just lays in his back.
I'm gonna leave my body, Sam.
What?
I'm going to leave my body in a trance-like state and transport my form to where he is. I need you to guard over my body.
And he just lays in the park projecting a spirit into the museum. And that saves him from having to film the scene where he actually travels to the museum because
their smoke machine was all out of smoke. They just didn't have time. But it also completely takes her, it takes her out of it. Like she's been this character who's there trying to help solve it, and then she literally just has to sit there and watch his passed out body.
I need you to guard over my body.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand. How do you tell if he's dead or like not dead? He's just laying there like comatose. Like I'd be like, "Are you dead?"
Yeah.
Also, they could have found like a better spot. Like that's just like real. And there's a tree there, but like otherwise, like dude, like there's places in Central Park you can find a better like,
go in like a bathroom
spot or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They play the scene as if he found some secluded spot, but really he's just like next to a tree, just laying down. Just on his back, all spread eagle, just arms out, legs out.
If they'd done it on a rowboat on the pond, that would have been better.
Yeah.
He just like passes out on the boat.
Well, and as we're gonna see, the punk finds them very easily. Very, very easily.
In all of Central Park. However many 100 acres it is.
Yeah, it's true. But at least it gives Samantha something to do. She like kind of holds him off until, comes back.
Yeah. But before the punk finds him, we cut to the museum. We see it's like this little rotunda with a bunch of dinosaur skeletons. It's not a bad set. Actually, I heard I think all those are green screened in. It's a pretty good effect, actually.
We watched like a very short making of.
Yeah.
They made a making of?
Well, like the one I saw, there might be others, but there's one
on YouTube.
Yeah, there's one that's like 5 minutes. And my favorite part is that it starts off saying like this amazing line about the movie. It says, "A prescription for movie magic written by Dr. Mordridge." But yeah, no.
And to be fair, the stop motion is great. This scene is great.
No, it's true.
Don't get ahead of yourself. We got to build up to it.
Sorry. You're right.
So Brian Thompson, as he arrives at the museum, apparently he's ready to open this fourth dimensional gate. The last thing we saw him do was kill that woman like early in the film. But apparently he's ready to do it. Like now he's ready to do it for some reason. He's going to do it now.
Yeah, and this would be another good ticking clock of like, why now? Like, why hasn't he attempted this before?
No indication. So he's like, he has, I guess, blood and diamonds and platinum. And he's got one line, he's combining them, and he's like, the blood of the something, the philosopher's stone. And he goes,
platinum, the sister of gold.
Which I
Well, he has timed it out perfectly where the traffic is really bad. So,
it's right at closing time.
Yeah.
So Dr. Mordrid astral projects into the room. He just kind of appears in the room like, zoom, in a flash. Cabal tries to attack him and finds out that he's like basically like a ghost. He's like, just his spirit. And and once again, like Jeffrey Combs is a character. I won't say Jeffrey Combs. I'll say Dr. Mordrid because Jeffrey Combs is doing a great job. It's really the script. Dr. Mordrid is kind of just like standing 60 feet from Cabal, just kind of staring in his direction, not really doing much,
Wait, can we back up real quick too? Because before Mordrid shows up is another one of my favorite secondary characters.
The old lady?
Which is that kid.
That little kid.
That calls Cabal an asshole.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, so it's closing time. It's a mom and her kid. Cabal is there. I love that the guard very respectfully kind of tells him he needs to go. Yeah. And I can't actually even remember right now like what precipitates it, but there is this kind of like tension, and Cabal's being his like weirdo self, and it's just this kid.
Yeah.
I think he's like, F you, a-hole.
So I remember Cabal says, like, I remember them being bigger.
Yeah, the dinosaurs.
Back then.
Yes,
that's
that's
what it
it.
is.
That's what it is.
And then, like, Cabal just leaves, and then the kid's just like, oh, you a fucking asshole. Well,
Man, they sure were giants.
I remember them being much bigger.
Dickhead. Alex, you can't say.
he hasn't said it.
Cabal is really funny in this series of scenes because actually I skipped this, but before he goes into the museum, he just sits on a bench outside the museum for some reason. And then this old lady sits next to him, and Cabal turns to her and is like, "Nice day. Might be the last one for a long, long time."
Beautiful day, isn't it? Might be the last one for a long, long time.
And the old lady just gives him this like disinterested stare, just like whatever. You know?
And I think the first time we watched this, I expected that to be Mordrid. I was like, maybe Mordrid disguised himself as this old lady, and he's gonna pop out. But no, he just ruined that lady's day.
That would have been cool.
And then he goes in the museum. So then Dr. Mordrid confronts Cabal in the museum. They shoot lightning back and forth a little bit. For some reason, it's not really effective. It's not working against Cabal. So Jeffrey Combs kind of just once again just standing there staring, and Cabal animates a T-Rex skeleton, and we get some really cool like Harryhausen. Is that the right name? Is it Harryhausen? How do you say it?
Mm-hmm.
You get some cute claymation of like the T-Rex skeleton stomping around. It's killing. The T-Rex eats like 3 cops, and Dr. Mordridge is watching it. Dr. Mordridge just watching it happen.
How's it feel to be so helpless?
He doesn't feel great about cops right now. He's like, you know what? Maybe we need to just cycle through these guys.
Again, Dr. Mordridge just standing in one spot, just kind of watching with, you know, he looks distressed, but he's not doing anything to stop these cops from being eaten by this T-Rex. And the cop's really funny because it's almost like that scene from Austin Powers where just like the cop just fires 3 bullets at the T-Rex and then just kind of falls down, and then the T-Rex slowly comes up to him. He's so much time to get away.
And I love that the stop motion in that is really good, but it is funny in that scene where the cop is like shooting at the T-Rex. You look at it, you're like, the angles are so off. You know, the T-Rex is coming from this angle, and the cop's like at a different angle, like, like just firing into the air. It's great. It's one of the best part of like stop motion for me.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's charming.
It's cute.
Yeah,
it's a good. So what happens is, you know, Cabal has animated this T-Rex. Dr. Mordrid animates like a giant woolly mammoth skeleton with these 2 big tusks. And then the mammoth and the T-Rex are fighting, and Dr. Mordridge, he's just kind of standing there just watching the skeleton. He was sent to Earth to prevent this, but I guess he's just going to stand there and just watch this happen as he lays in the park. Like, you know.
He's doing his best.
And then the T-Rex actually kind of like, it seems like the T-Rex is beating the mammoth, and you see like him biting the mammoth. And then Cabal's like, I did it, I won. And then you find out that the mammoth actually is fine. The mammoth gores Cabal.
You didn't win!
And that's basically it. It's the end of the movie. Well, there's a little more.
And I love that that's like that's all it took. Like he's very easily defeated once Mordred does anything to kind of come back.
Well, and I do feel like they kind of shot themselves in the foot earlier when Cabal like astral projects into Mordred's house, and he's like, you know, he doesn't do anything to him.
Right.
And then in this one, he's like, you're astral projecting, you can't attack me. And he's like, but I can do spells and like shoot some stuff at him. He's like, why didn't you do that earlier?
And like, doesn't all that they do are spells anyway?
Yeah.
Like they don't
Seemingly.
touch each other. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
So
After this, we get the punk finds his mortal body.
Right.
Samantha saves him, and then Mordred's just right back there. There's some sparks and stuff, but I do love the I totally missed the picture of kind of his past love. And that could have been a great part of that storyline of like why he was conflicted about falling in love again. He still has this person that he's in love with, and then Samantha comes and he's not sure, but they really don't explore it at all.
No. It's true. It feels like a lot was cut out, which again is weird because it's such a short movie.
So like, if they cut anything out, like, dang, it must have been bad or something.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's one little shot when Cabal is almost finished his evil plans and is doing it. We actually cut back to the space prison briefly, and we actually can see the little round manhole that leads, I guess, to hell.
Oh yeah,
is open.
Yeah.
There's a really, really brief shot of like a few little cute claymation demons kind of starting to climb out, and we see Cutter again. We see him like shooting lasers at them.
Lasers from his like shotgun.
Yeah. And that's kind of when you realize that manhole is actually, I guess, what Cabal is trying to open.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a weird scene too, because it's like it's open, the things are like ready to come out. Mordrid does his thing, the door closes and like seals, and then Cutter starts shooting like at the closed door, and then he's like, "I did it."
Well, I'll be damned. I did it.
Yeah.
I did it. It's like you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a joke, but I think it's kind of confusing.
Yeah. No, it's so
Yeah,
little.
it didn't land.
So then Dr. Mordridge re-enters his body in the park. He talks to Samantha. He's like, "My work here is done," basically. And I think, does he talk to the eyes again?
Yeah, he talks to the eyes.
He talks to
The
the
eyes
eyes.
calls him back.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to come home or something.
Oh, yeah, because it's the eyes that say like, "Oh, you revealed like way too much of yourself, buddy."
You've done well, Mordrid, but you must cross over now.
Why?
You have revealed too much to the mortals.
Yeah.
Like immediately to every person you talk to.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, he gave his whole life story to the
Yeah.
lady.
The eyes are like, "You didn't even try to keep this shit secret. What the hell?" So then he talks to Samantha, and he says to her, like, "You can't come. I need to go. You can't come with me. I'm sorry." And he says, "Oh, watch Edgar Allan for me."
Yeah.
He's like, "Watch Edgar," and he kind of like, boo, he kind of teleports away, and he's gone. And then we see the punk come back, and the punk is about to like kill Samantha, right?
Oh no, that's before this.
It's before this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's before it, because I think Mordred pops back into his body, and then it's just like, time out. Doesn't he like freeze the punk like mid?
Oh, you're
attack?
right.
Yeah.
He frees the punk mid attack because
Samantha like stops him
Yeah.
while like Combs is still passed out. Well, not passed out.
But then what happens is Combs is gone, and then Samantha's asshole partner comes back.
Right.
And that's when the punk unfreezes.
Right.
And the punk's the punk still thinks he's invincible. He thinks his 12 hours are still going. So he's like,
Oh, look, dude, the master protects me from your puny weapons. You ain't got shit! Put it down! Put it down! Jesus Christ!
and then he goes back. To prison for once again.
But based on my understanding of the timing of this movie, he should still be invincible.
Right?
Like he turned invincible during the day.
Yeah.
It's like now it's like people are going home from work.
Or maybe Cabal's dead, so the
that makes sense.
spell no longer is.
That makes total sense.
There's actually a scene outside. There's a scene outside the museum where Cabal says like, "Sorry, now you're just like everyone else."
Really?
And
that's right. Cabal's just like, you didn't do
Yeah.
a great job.
That's enough.
Oh yeah, and also when Combs comes to, like the lady's holding off the guy, and Combs is like, "Oh, his master is dead." Like it's like saying like he doesn't have power over him anymore.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So he tells Samantha like, "Oh, you can't come with me." He goes back to his space land. Tony shows up, and Tony is still obsessed with arresting Dr. Mordrid. He's still obsessed with it. And Tony's like, "I'm gonna find him, Sam." And then like there's a strange moment where like Samantha's very respectful to him. She's like,
You probably will, Tony. You're a dedicated cop.
Yeah, what the fuck? She shouldn't be giving him any like sort of credit.
It's really weird because she's like
Yeah.
suddenly respectful, and also she knows that Dr. Mordrid is like in another dimension now. So I don't know if she's being if it's supposed to be sarcastic, but it doesn't come across as sarcastic. It comes across as kind of endearing. It's strange.
I think she's maybe like just trying to be like you'll find him, but like she knows like you'll never fucking find him.
Yeah.
Like good luck.
And now, and then we get to the baffling end scene where we flash forward a little bit. It's Christmas. We hear like some stock Christmas MIDI music. It sounds like MIDIs. We see a few snowy scenes of New York. We see like some Christmas lights. And we see Samantha is in Dr. Mordrid's apartment, and she's just like reading a book. She's just chilling in the apartment. And I think the crow, the raven, sorry, the Raven cause. And then
well, she's like, oh, I like your company, Poe or Edgar or whatever, but I wish, I had other company.
Yeah. And then Dr. Mordridge comes back. He teleports back in. He's like, hello.
Hey. Merry Christmas.
And then, and he says a line is like, I'm back for now. He goes, but wherever they send me, I'm going to need help, as if she'll be a sidekick, which is funny.
Yeah. Well, you're here to stay for a while. You're going to vanish on me again.
Well, wherever they send me, I'll need some help. Somebody I can trust.
He said the exact opposite in the park, in the previous scene.
Sam, I have to leave.
We'll go together.
Where I'm going, you can't come.
But whatever happened off-world. Well, and that really does feel like Doctor Who. Like, it feels like it's like setting up this is me and my companion, and we're gonna go and solve these mysteries or whatever.
Right. That's really true.
The whole thing feels like a pilot episode of a 1-hour TV show.
Yes.
And it would actually be a not terrible pilot episode of a 1-hour TV show. But imagine seeing this in theaters. That's really something. Because again, by this point, you're at like the 1 hour, 4 minute mark. It's so short.
So short.
So then, so he says like, oh, you can help me. But then he says, this is the final line of the movie.
But first, we have to have a little eggnog. And watch our movie for the first time.
Yeah, and it's like, what does that mean? Our movie for the first time?
We need to have some eggnog and watch our movie.
Is it getting meta?
Are
they going to watch Dr. Mordridge?
Maybe.
That could be. That would make sense.
Earlier, she mentions watching It's a Wonderful Life for the 100th time.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, right.
So, that can't be their movie.
Yeah.
Surely Mordred has seen It's a Wonderful Life. He's been alive for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
I feel like the first thing they should do is cash all of the rent checks that have been coming in.
Right?
Because who's been cashing the rent checks since he disappeared?
Well, that's what I wonder. Is Sam living there rent-free because she knows that Combs is gone?
That's nice.
Oh, I would not pay my rent. What?
No
He's going to evict you? No.
Absolutely not. Or if you write checks, he's obviously not going to cash them. So you could still write them. But that's rent-free. That's so
but I mean, has he been cashing? Because wouldn't all of the tenants kind of think it was weird? Would tenants still be delivering checks?
It is the one part of the movie that is so unnecessary, and it just begs so many more questions.
Yeah.
Does he do repairs? Does he file insurance things on the building? Landlords have responsibilities in New York and everywhere.
He's on the building.
He doesn't need to be a landlord.
Right. It's a lot of work being a landlord, and why doesn't he give this job to someone else? I don't know. There's a lot of questions. You're right. It's just so much.
And ironically, I think we skipped over this in the conversation, but in the middle of the film, Samantha's in his apartment and she sees she sees a letter that's addressed from her. She's like, why do you have this? And she goes, oh, you're the landlord. And that's when you find out that he's the landlord. Yeah, which is
the movie doesn't seem to understand the difference between a building owner and a landlord. He could own the building and have somebody else but he does both, only he doesn't seem to do any of the landlord.
Well, because in that scene that you just mentioned, she's like, are you going to fix my dishwasher?
Will you get somebody to come fix my garbage disposal?
And it's did that ever get fixed? Did he call someone? Was he like, hey, it's Dr. Mordrid?
No, he would have to leave his apartment to fix a dishwasher, and that's not going to happen.
True.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that.
Yeah.
The way he would fix a dishwasher is you tell him a dishwasher's broken, then he would just read a book about it. He'd read a scroll about it. He'd look at a map. He would
set the book on fire.
Start a fire.
But again, in a normal film, he would arrive, he would come back, and then they would kiss at the end,
Yeah, where's the kiss?
But the way this film is, he teleports in. It's a one shot of only Jeffrey Combs. You can't see both characters. And then it's a one shot of Samantha smiling. And you don't even see him in the same frame. It's so disconnected. They don't even move towards each other. It just seems like they're in opposite ends of a room just staring at each other.
Look, they love each other very much.
Yeah, they really tried to be to not make them a couple.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. It would have been more interesting if there was any bit of tension there.
Well, and it wasn't necessary. Like they didn't have to make it a love story. They didn't have to be in a relationship at all. They could have just kind of been like friendly with each other. But it really like it ramps up at the end, and that the ending of her kind of like waiting, like pining for him.
Yeah, and she's ready to like travel to interdimensional space with him before he leaves. She's like, "Oh, I'm with you wherever."
Yeah.
It's like, you have a life, lady. Like,
and I think, and she says that, and the only magic she's seen him do is firsthand is him stopping time with the watch, and also just kind of busting out of handcuffs a little bit.
And putting thoughts in her head.
But she didn't see Master Projected. All she sees is him just laying down in a park.
He did, and he did give her like weird visions. He touched her head, and she was like, "What did you do to me?" And he's like, "I showed you a boring story about my childhood.
I showed you some boring footage." So that's Dr. Mordridge. It's
10 combs.
I mean, I feel like 10 combs.
Yeah,
Combs deserved better, but also he's the best, so he really made it. You know,
I have zero complaints about Combs' performance in this.
Yeah,
and upon like subsequent watches, I was like, he's really selling this magic stuff. You know, he and Brian Thompson too, when they're having that showdown and they're both, you know, thrusting balls of light at each other, they're just doing that with their hands and in real time, you know? And I don't know. I liked it. It was believable.
I'll say, I mean, casting saved this movie because, you know, it's good. Everyone loves seeing Jeffrey Combs on screen, and Brian Thompson is equally fun to watch on screen. Like they're almost exact opposites in a way, where Brian Thompson is just this over the top villainous persona with just like this ridiculous voice and like a skull face and he's jacked. And Jeffrey Combs is like, it's hard to describe how he is, but he's like meek, a little understated. And I like it.
Yeah, I do wish the screenwriters of this gave the two leads, or at least Mordrid and Cabal, the same kind of attention they gave to like all the secondary characters.
Yeah,
because the secondary characters had really fun, interesting lines, and I get the main characters have to deliver a lot of plot and backstory and all this kind of stuff, but I don't know, it felt almost formulaic instead of like letting him really have fun with it. You know, I feel like when you let Combs be unhinged,
oh god,
in a movie, like look at Reanimator, like that's him at his best, where he's just like, he's nuts and it's great, it's perfect.
Yeah,
he's very restrained in this role.
And
it would be fine to be restrained if they balance it with showing the magic he can do. If he's restrained, but we see, oh, he's a genius and he has all this magic, but instead he's restrained and mostly sitting in his apartment or standing in his apartment reading books and just kind of staring at the walls. So it's like, it's a bad combination.
Well, like how great would it have been if Mordrid, like if they really pushed that character, if maybe he's still mourning whoever that woman was, if he's just fully depressed, like he doesn't really care about stuff anymore. He doesn't leave his apartment. He just stays in his gold robe and his blue bodysuit. And like, that's all he wants to do. And this is like forcing him to like get out of his...
him an identity crisis too, where he's like, what's the point of trying to save it?
Yeah.
You know, it's just going to happen again. The prophecy says it'll just happen again. And it's like, he has to be almost like rallied to save humanity.
And that would give Samantha something to do too, because then Mordred would be like, humanity is not worth saving because I lost my love 200 years ago. And Samantha would be like, I'm a cop. All I do all day is save people. And you got to see you could learn from me. And then I thought it'd be fun if Mordred is using all this arcane magic and reading scrolls and reading books. And Samantha has like shotguns and thumbprint archives with her cop, so she's got all the cop technology.
Yeah.
The two of them together work to solve it, but that's not what happens.
No. Well, and I feel like you could have done that, and that would have been a good, like, this would have been a good pilot with that as a series run. Where she has this thing, and they're like equal but different.
Right. Like if there were a series of murders where Cabal is killing all of these women or something, and she's a cop who's trying to solve it, and maybe even like suspects Mordred at some point, and then he, kind of realizes he's innocent, but he could help her. Yeah. Like all of that immediately sets up so much more tension and so much more for them both to do. But yeah, we talked about before, the main characters really feel like secondary characters. It feels like there's somebody missing who's actually going to drive the plot. And even Cabal, like what he does, But like you said, that it just like he kind of stops at one point. Like he's doing things and then he's just kind of hanging out, talking to old ladies on benches. And you're like, what?
I would say there's really no character development whatsoever. Where like at the beginning, Dr. Mordrid is a reserved magician who wants to stop Cabal. And at the end, he's a reserved magician who wants to stop Cabal. And like,
like thousands of years old or who knows what.
Yeah.
He's already had his character development.
Yeah, but I would love to watch that. I would love to watch that TV show where
Yeah,
every
no, I agree.
episode there's some supernatural monster. Dr. Mordrid is some like sorcerer that's been sent to Earth to stop these things. But the planes are converging and the monsters are getting too strong, and now Dr. Mordrid alone can't stop all these monsters. And so he has this cop, he has this lady cop friend, and like she's using her cop resources, her helicopters and shotguns and computers, and he's
knows
using
how to-
magic.
Or maybe if it's more in like modern times and like she's able to like Google stuff.
Yeah.
And, like use GPS.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's like, let me consult the scrolls, and she's like, ever hear of Google? He's like,
Yeah, that'd be funny. Yeah, if he's like somewhat of a Luddite, where he's like, I don't use that type of stuff. I'd rather astral project than be in a car.
Yeah. Or I have to wait until these crystals like come into, and she's like, we don't have time for that. Like,
Yeah, it's like it's a Colt 357 Magnum. It's better than a Crystal of Endor.
Oh no.
So definitely 10 out of 10.
Yes. 10 out of
10 out of
10.
10.
Jeffrey Combs.
What was your guys' favorite part of the movie?
I think the funniest part is when the guy is dancing on the train platform and gets arrested.
Give me love, give nothing. Ow, ow, your mind. Doom, doom, doom. Ow, you cover nothing.
For everyone listening to this podcast, everybody listening,
everyone,
single person,
just find this just find that scene. It's just really funny. It's just so strange.
Give me love, give nothing. Ow, ow, your mind. Doom, doom, doom. Ow, you
Man.
And that guy's delivery is great. I love that guy. What's your favorite part?
I mean, I would say same.
Give me love, give nothing. Ow, ow, your mind. Doom, doom, doom.
I would say same, and also Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Combs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Combs was my favorite part.
Great.
Yeah, I do like that Cutter storyline. I wish he was in it more.
No, it's true. I
know?
want to see more of the floating rock. And actually, one thing that we didn't touch on, but I wrote a note. The music in this movie is like insane. It feels very like, I don't know. It almost feels like a point and click adventure, like a point and click video game. There's something like MIDI-esque about it.
Oh, it sounds cheap.
Yeah.
It just sounds cheap.
I don't.
Especially that last scene, like you mentioned, the like Christmas scene. I didn't put it together that it was like Christmas music.
Yeah,
but it's like almost comical. It's almost like a Three Stooges movie or something. It's like
when he says the final line about like we need to have some eggnog and watch our movie for the first time, like the music goes doot 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 doot, doot, and then the closing credits come up.
And watch our movie for the first time.
And it's so
it's a sitcom. This should be a sitcom.
Yeah.
It was an era where like that kind of music was like cutting edge in a way. But
cutting edge cheap. They're like, we don't need a band. We could just push a button and it's almost as good.
I keep using the word, but like it's charming in a way.
Yeah.
I still like it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it makes me happy.
I would say this is a flawed film.
Except for Combs. Combs is perfect.
It's a flawed film, but it is charming, and it's so short that it never gets boring, and there's a handful of funny things.
Yeah.
It's super watchable.
Yeah.
There's enough funny things and like weird special effects kind of paced throughout that it's really enjoyable.
Well, the pacing is actually, it goes fast. It's one of those movies that you would think like not that much happens, but it does kind of just clip along, like new scene, now he's in jail, now he's running, but like it flows. It's fun.
Yeah, it's actually like it's filmed pretty well. It looks fine. It sounds fine. It's edited fine. Just no characters do anything pretty much from start to finish. The only problem is most characters don't do anything, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they never made a sequel.
Well,
It's weird.
well, even this film is just like probably just bordering on being illegal because it's so clearly ripping off Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was online a picture of like an early poster sketch. I guess they hired Jack Kirby to do like a sketch of the original poster, and that's it. I don't know if they ran out of Jack Kirby money and were like, we can't do any more.
Yeah.
But it's out there. It looks cool. I kind of wish it looked like that.
Yeah.
If anyone needs a Halloween costume, Dr. Mordrid, it's his blue cape, blue pants, blue shirt. It's an amazing costume.
Yeah. Very comfortable.
It's really, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, watch Dr. Mordrid.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, you can watch it for free on Tubi.com, right? That's where you watch it?
Yeah,
Tubi TV.
There's commercials, but hopefully that's still up for anyone who wants to watch it.
Yeah, nobody knows what Tubi is. It's a strange streaming website where some movies are there. I guess it's legal because they show ads.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if all of them do too. The ads are so sporadic. So you can I feel like you almost get lucky sometimes where you get really short ones or not that many. I feel like when we watched it a second time today, we had a lot more ads than I feel like even from before.
Yeah,
so
I think Tubi knows. Tubi's like, you.
Maybe from all of us watching it a bunch, Tubi's like, ooh, Dr. Mordrid is hot right now. Lay on the ad.
I just hope that Combs gets like a tiny bit of money from us watching Dr. Mordrid so much on Tubi TV.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Like a check for a penny.
Yeah.
The number of views went from 0 to 2, which represents an infinite jump, basically, an infinite percentage.
Yeah. It's hyperbolic.
Yeah. So the people at Tubi are just like freaking out, running around the office, trying to monetize Dr. Mordrid now.
Yeah.
Oh man. So what's next? What's our next
oh man.
Combs crew?
There's so many.
I kind of want to see Cellar Dweller again.
Oh man.
I would do that again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was so weird and so funny too. Oh wait,
I love
I was
that one.
I was confusing Castle Freak and Cellar Dweller.
Oh my god.
I get those confused too, which is so funny because they're so different. But
I meant to say
Castle.
There's like there's a dungeon in Castle Freak. So like that's like Dungeon Dweller.
Yeah.
With a terror. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Wait, which one did you mean?
I did mean Cellar Dweller. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Combs is only in like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, maybe we can.
Could watch.
Oh, that's right.
10 minutes.
Yeah, we could just do a mini episode on the first 10 minutes. I almost want to do the Frighteners, but only talk about Combs's role.
Yeah.
Like only talk about what's going on with his.
There's so much to unpack there. I would love to talk about.
Yeah,
that.
maybe we should do that while it's fresh in our memories a little bit because I feel like I don't need to rewatch that.
Yeah.
That's like a Wikipedia catch up on the plot.
Or just a fast forward, just watch his scenes.
Yeah.
That might be a rental. But
yeah.
I still that's one of my favorite roles of his. He's just so bananas. Like I just wish the whole movie was kind of about just that character.
Yeah. Well, that's another one where like he's got backstory, but they don't really touch on most of it. And it's like, tell me more about this crazy guy.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh man.
We got an hour and 45 minutes here.
Oh my gosh.
Is it so much longer?
It's like twice the length of Dr. Mordrid.
Yes.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. It's amazing.
Do you have an outro planned?
Wait, didn't you have one? Didn't you have an outro planned?
We're all going to say Jeffrey Combs.
Oh, I think that actually was it. It's what was our favorite part, and then of the movie, and then in unison we all say Jeffrey Combs.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So you guys, what was our favorite part of the movie?
Jeffrey
Combs.
That's perfect.